Voice to those on the inside for the past 40 years and heading outdoors for a quieter life. Holly Karen reports.
Days from retirement, Greg Newbold's putting the final touches on his 10th book, all before tackling the mammoth job of packing up his life's work. For more than 40 years, Newbold has been our go-to criminologist.
The justice system isn't just set up to punish people, it's also set up to try and stop people from reoffending when they get out.
A criminal world he's had a rare insight into.
I completed the thesis on the social organisation of a maximum security prison while I was an inmate of Perennial Maximum Security Prison.
Newbold was locked up for 5 years in the 70s for selling heroin, while inside he helped Arthur Allen Thomas's fight for freedom.
He and I used to get together and he would tell me the story and I'd write it out, and then he would rewrite what I'd written in his own handwriting and then post it off to Robert Muldoon. It's a big, thick piece of work.
Also completing his master's degree, gaining first-class honours.
I think prison's a great place. Every opportunity's there for you when you're in jail. You've got every opportunity to think about your life, reflect on it and make a change if you want to. It consists primarily of...
He spent the last 40 years climbing the academic ladder, including writing the criminal justice degree.
That's the thing I'm most proud of here, is getting that criminal justice degree up and running.
Having done his time as a professor, he has a new life ahead.
I want to do more fishing, I want to do more diving, I want to do more hunting than I've been able to while I'm working.
A quieter life for a man who has lived life to the full. Holly Karen, News Hub.
What a remarkable career he had. Well, coming up, Wanted, a new sheriff.
Yeah, and I finished up there because I wanted to go to university.
Oh, okay.
And that's when when I was at Parnell that I first had marijuana.
Okay. Yeah.
And then soon after that, first had LSD.
But this is when you were a firefighter.
I first had marijuana as a firefighter. Yeah. And then LSD after that when I was first year at university.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember that experience, that first LSD trip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. California Sunshine. All that stuff, all that LSD was coming from Augustus Owsley Stanley.
Yeah.
Who was the White Rabbit in that song, The White Rabbit?
Yeah.
It's sung by Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the White Rabbit, and he was producing all the LSD that was imported to New Zealand. So we were getting really good, high quality California Sunshine, Orange Glow, Purple Haze, all the traffic light. They were the main acid little tabs.
Yeah.
And also stuff on blotting paper. Right. Working them off. So they were going to drop us charges in order for him to come to Auckland and set up some deals.
Right.
And they were going to, it was big, little fish catch a big fish, you know.
Yeah.
And so they came to me and asked me through a guy called, they were going all around Auckland asking if anyone. Are you finished there, mate? Yeah. One of the big price about it. Psychologically addicted to it because I started off using it just once a week, then it was twice a week, and by the time I got busted, it was 4 times a week. So I was on the road to getting a big, fat jackrabbit, but it wasn't. It hadn't happened at that stage. I managed to have things under control, but I was sort of, when I was holding, I'd be buying off the people who I was selling to, and when they were holding, I'd buy off them, and when they were holding, I'd buy off them, or they buy off me, it was a bit like that. But it ended up, because I managed to hold off getting a habit and keep things under control. I was able to make, some fairly good money in those days, and I buy a motorbike. Yeah, life was actually great, and it was the best. All a young man could want: drugs, money, a motorbike, and plenty of women. And I mean, I couldn't think of anything more that I would want ever. Yeah, then I got busted. It was all over. Yeah. I got busted by
there was a guy called AJ who was working off, he was a small-time drug dealer from Hamilton, who was working off his sentence by working for the police. You know, they dropped the charges in return for him setting up people like me, and it was a very successful operation. And him and a guy called Panaho, who was a detective from the Waikato, came up to Auckland with the idea of finding someone, of busting people, and they contacted me through people that I knew, and I declined to do the deal. But 3 days later, they'd gone to some other people, and 3 days later, those people who they'd gone to who were regular customers of mine came to me and asked me if I could get them an ounce of smack. And I said, yeah, I can get it. And I was only going to get $100 out of it. You know, I bought the smack for $900 and I sold it to them for $1,000. And I was just doing it for a favour, because I'd turned AJ down 3 days before because I didn't know him. But these guys I did know, and I didn't know that they were dealing with the same guy. They were dealing with AJ. And they went off to do the deal, and the cops knew that someone else was involved. It was me, and so they were holding off the deal. They were stalling and stalling and stalling. And Lugsy and Lee Cricket were supposed to come back to me immediately with the money, but they hadn't. And they came back about 2 hours later, and I said, where's the bloody money? And they said, well, the deal hasn't been done yet. And I said, well, where's the smack? And I said, it's round at Geddy's place. He was a German guy called Gregor Lunas, and around at Geddy's place. And I said, he's a bloody junkie. He'll be hooking into it. I said, I'm coming around there and I'm going to get it. You either do the deal now, or else I'm going to take the smack and I'll keep it, you know. So I went round there, and they said, no, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. So I sat in the living room talking to a prostitute called Denise, and I was just sitting, and suddenly all the windows came smashing in, and the doors came bashing in, and the cops' place was just overrun with coppers and dogs and guns and all the rest of it. And I just about crapped my pants. I sat there, and then Geddy came running into the living room with this heroin and threw it under the cabinet right opposite where I was sitting. So there was me and the heroin in the same room, and we all got arrested. In the end, they didn't know where I fit in, because I arrived after the heroin. I arrived at the house 2 hours after the heroin arrived, so they didn't know where I fitted in. But some of them started talking under interrogation, and I was interrogated, and I refused to say anything. And Steve Upton, who was the detective who interviewed me, he was a good cop, he didn't tell any lies. He came up to me and he just says, look, I've been awake for 24 hours setting this bloody job up. He says, I'm really tired now, and I'm not going to muck around. He said, either you talk and tell me where you got the smack from. He said, everyone else is fingering you. And if you don't talk, he said, when the shit hits the fan, you're going to be covered in it. So do you want to say anything? I said, no, I'm not talking. Just lock me up. And so he said, yeah, okay. And he locked me up, and that was it. So I was taken out to Mount Eden. I was remanded in custody. And during the trial, they didn't have it about 5 months. Yeah, because we were locked up 20 hours a day. You know, we were allowed out. We were out in the yard for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, just in an open yard. Even if it was raining, we'd be outside in the yard, and that's where, you know, Terry Clark was busted soon after that, and he came up and said, I'm a friend of Doug's, and Doug said you're a good bloke, and so we became friends. He'd been busted with a guy called Ray Brunel, who was an Auckland crib, and an old boxer actually, and me, Ray and Terry became good mates, and in the remand yard at Mount Eden Prison. Skeletal measurements and skin folds to find out the impact of European diet on
on the shapes of maxilla of the so he's got it half right, he's got it half right.
You got a good price for it though, if you actually get past it. So how long did you do? 7 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got 7.5 years and I served 5.5 of it. So I did most of my 20s. Most of my 20s was in jail, really. I was 23 when I went in and 29 when I got out.
Right. So you did that. Where were you? Which prison were you in?
I started off at Perennial Maximum Security, and I did half of it there, and then they transferred me down to Hotu, down near Turangi.
Oh yeah, the farm.
And
there, yeah.
I finished it off there.
Yeah. What was it like as a 23-year-old, a young kid there who just sold a bit of smack, good smack, but smack it all the same, and you're heading towards Paremonem, the heavy maximum security there, which is pretty grim. At the best of times, if there is such a thing. What was it? What went through your mind? Were you cripping yourself?
I was pretty shattered when I got sentenced. It was a real shock. But I knew how long I was going to get. It was actually when I got convicted because I pleaded not guilty. But when I got convicted, I was shattered. But then by the time I got sentenced, I knew how long I was going to get. Going to Perennial, the first part was the worst part because I was in classification where, I'd been on remand for 5 months and we were locked up 20 hours a day on remand, so I was pretty used to being locked up. And then once I got sentenced, I spent the first 4 or 5 months in classification block, and that was 20 hours a day lockup. And then after that, I moved over to the standard blocks into A block. And it was pretty good over there. In the 1970s, conditions were great in prison. We had a fantastic superintendent called Jack Hobson, who was a really good guy, and we had debating clubs, and I used to, work out in the gym every night. We had, we were access to the library. Things were a lot better in jail in those days than they are now.
Yeah, because you were studying, so you started studying it as well, and you asked the prisoners to turn down their radios, and they did. Imagine trying to do that now.
Yeah, no, the guys were great. I started off in the workshops, but when they realised I was serious about study, they gave me full-time studies along with about 3 or 4 other guys, and I did my MA in prison, got first class honours, and the guys were great. The guys were really assisted me, and the screws were terrific too. When they searched my cells, they'd always knock on my door before they came in and ask me politely if I could go outside, and I'd say yes. And everyone was very polite in those days. It was all please and thank you. And we were on the first name terms with the screws, and they were on first name terms with us, and so it was a pretty nice jail actually. It was the best jail in the country, Perennial.
If you hadn't gone to jail,
guys didn't want to go.
I was going to say, if you hadn't gone to jail, Greg, where do you think you'd be now? Because it sounds like you turned your life, around while behind bars.
Yeah, well, I probably would have got a big habit. I was using smack 2 or 3 times a week by the time I got busted. And I was getting a bit of a jackrabbit, and I probably would have ended up with a big one, and my life would have been screwed really. I probably would have ended up with Terry Clark's outfit over in England and ended up going to Long Lartin or one of those jails over there where the others went. When they got busted in England. So it was the best thing that happened to me, really, going to jail right at that point. It allowed me to take stock of my life and start taking things seriously. At 23, you quite often don't look at life very seriously, but when you get a big lagging, you're forced to think pretty seriously about what's going to happen for the rest of your life, and that's what I did. And so I buckled down and got my degree, and then won a scholarship and did a PhD when I got out.
Fairly big, big open question here though. And how have you seen crime change over the years, and have we got any chance of getting on top of it? No, crime's always been around. It's a normal feature of society, crime.
and drugs will always be around as well. They just change. You see, in my day it was smack, heroin, but prior to that, you know, I mean, before that we were using LSD and marijuana. Then smack became the drug of vogue, and then and now it's methamphetamine. So you know, in 10 years, 20 years time, it'll be something else. Everybody likes getting out of it, you know.
It's a shame that we don't rehabilitate like it seems like we were doing it in your day. Lovely to see you, Greg. All the very best, and enjoy your retirement, fishing, hunting, and all those things, mate. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan.
Okay, you're very welcome, mate. All the best. Take care. Retired criminologist.